Final update. My son got his teacher pregnant, and he denied it. Now she's demanding marriage or child support, but the DNA test results shocked everyone. The day arrived to pick up the DNA test results. My lawyer, my son, and I headed to the clinic. They handed us a sealed envelope, and I practically tore it open on the spot. The moment I saw 0% probability of paternity, my entire body flooded with relief. My son wasn't the father. All the stress, fear, and anger of those past weeks suddenly had nowhere to go. I looked at my kid, who gave a weird half laugh and then slumped in his chair like he was about to pass out. The teacher was nowhere to be seen that day. She left the clinic after her part was done. We took those results home, and my wife burst into tears of joy. She hugged our son tight, almost smothering him. Then her expression changed to fury. She said, "We're going to destroy that woman in court." Right. My lawyer was already drafting notices that we would be pressing defamation and possibly extortion charges if the teacher didn't back off and apologize. I wasn't about to let her slide after the hell she put my family through. We sent a formal cease and desist letter demanding a retraction of her claims and compensation for our legal fees. A week went by with no response. My son tried to move on, focusing on his classes and social life. It was like he finally started breathing again. I saw him laughing with his friends, and even posted a few pictures of them at a concert. But deep down, I was still on edge, waiting for the teacher's next move. Sure enough, one afternoon at my restaurant, she showed up. She'd somehow sneaked in through a side entrance. And before I knew it, she was standing in the hallway near the kitchen, cornering me while I tried to oversee a delivery. She started sobbing and ranting that I'd ruined her life. That the school board suspended her after hearing about her fake allegations, and that she was now fired. She demanded that I fix it like I was responsible for her losing her job. She had the audacity to say if I had just given her a few $1,000s, none of this would have happened. I stared at her in disbelief. She was basically admitting she'd been after money the whole time. I told her she needed to leave, or I'd call the cops. She spat on the floor, literally spit, and stomped out, cursing me under her breath. I immediately filed a police report for harassment and trespassing. I wasn't messing around anymore. This woman was unhinged. A couple of days later, the principal called me back. He confirmed that the teacher had been officially terminated. The investigation revealed she had pulled similar stunts before, though it never escalated to this extent. Hearing that made me furious all over again. How many people had she tried to con before finally getting caught? I told my lawyer I wanted to go full steam ahead with legal action. My wife agreed, saying we had to make sure she couldn't do this to anyone else. My son was hesitant, worried about dragging things out, but he eventually agreed that letting her walk away with no consequences was a bad idea. We prepared to file a lawsuit for defamation, emotional distress, and attempted extortion. My lawyer thought we had a solid case. He warned me that it might take a while to resolve, but we had a mountain of evidence. The DNA test, her threatening texts, phone calls from that random guy, her repeated demands for money, plus statements from the principal. While we waited for the court date, I hired a private investigator to dig deeper into her background. It turns out she was drowning in debt, she had nearly been evicted multiple times, and had even gone to small claims court before over unpaid rent. There were also rumors she tried to pressure another student's family in the past, but it never blew up like this. It was clear she saw my family as a gold mine because of my restaurants, and assumed we'd pay her off. Her arrogance was staggering. About a month later, we had our first hearing. The teacher showed up looking bitter and haggard with a public defender, because she couldn't afford a lawyer. We laid out our evidence in front of the judge, the DNA results, text transcripts, phone logs, and proof that her story was impossible, given my son's schedule, and that soccer tournament trip. She tried to spin some wild excuse saying she'd been pressured by someone else, or that she was misled about the baby's paternity. It was a pathetic display. The judge basically called her out, stating that she had made serious false allegations with zero proof, and even threatened us for money. The teacher broke down saying she was desperate, pregnant, and unemployed. She said something like, "I just wanted them to care about my situation," which only made her look more manipulative. The judge ruled in our favor, ordering her to pay our legal fees, and slapped her with a fine for filing false claims. Whether she'll ever actually pay is another story, but at least we got a formal judgment. She also faced further investigation over her conduct as a teacher, likely ensuring she'd never be allowed near a classroom again. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt a whirlwind of emotions, relief, anger, and triumph. My son was officially cleared of any doubt. The biggest satisfaction was watching the teacher realize she had no leverage left. Her face when the judge scolded her is something I'll never forget. She looked at me like I was the villain for standing up for my kid, but I felt zero sympathy after everything she'd done to us. My son bounced back pretty quickly once it was all over. He said he learned a harsh lesson about how messed up some people can be. He's focusing on his studies again, hanging out with friends, and basically just living his life without the weight of that nightmare. My wife and I took him out to celebrate once the case closed, just a simple family dinner at one of my restaurants. We toasted to our family's unity, and joked that if someone turned this into a movie, critics would say the plot was too over the top. I admit even though we won there's still some leftover rage in me. She tried to manipulate us with a fake pregnancy claim, demanded marriage, threatened public exposure, and even had random goons calling my phone. It was beyond anything I'd ever imagined dealing with. But we came out on top by staying calm, gathering evidence, and letting the truth speak for itself. I'm thankful we had the resources to fight her in court. Not everyone could afford a decent lawyer or private investigator, and she banked on us being too scared to challenge her, a big mistake on her part. Some people have asked me if we're sure she was ever pregnant. The truth is I have no idea. The private investigator found conflicting medical records. Maybe she's pregnant, maybe she's not. If she is, I feel sorry for that child because having her as a mother would be rough either way. It's not my family's problem anymore. We proved my son wasn't responsible. The judge saw through her lies. She lost her teaching job, and she's saddled with legal consequences. For me that's more than enough closure. My parents, especially my father, were relieved when the DNA results came back. They had stayed mostly in the background trusting I'd handle it, but they were worried sick. My father actually told me, "Son, you did the right thing, you protected your boy." That meant a lot. Sometimes I feel guilty that my son had to go through such a nasty experience at such a young age, but he came out stronger. He witnessed firsthand how important it is to stand your ground when you're being falsely accused. And I guess I've learned that no matter how absurd someone's story might sound, you have to address it head on with facts, otherwise liars can turn your life upside down. In the end, if anyone reading this ever finds themselves in a similar spot accused of something crazy by someone manipulative, my advice is, document everything. Don't let them scare you into paying hush money, or making a bad deal just to avoid public embarrassment. Collect texts, emails, threats, and get a lawyer who knows their stuff. Bullies like that crumble once you shine enough light on their lives. The relief you feel when your name is cleared is worth every bit of stress. So yeah, that's the saga of how my son was falsely accused by a teacher who claimed he got her pregnant. She tried to trap him into marriage or child support. And we had to go through a legal battle to prove his innocence. The DNA test results completely vindicated him, and she ended up losing her job credibility, and faced serious legal repercussions. We've moved on with our lives now, but I still shake my head sometimes thinking, did that really happen? It feels like a twisted dream, but it was real, and it taught us all a lesson in standing up for ourselves. My son's back to normal, focusing on a future that was almost derailed by someone's greed. In the grand scheme of things, I'm just glad we made it out with our family intact, and our heads held high.